In the earliest conceptual plans, Terminator 3 was never meant to feel like a reset or a soft continuation. The story was envisioned as a direct emotional sequel to Terminator 2, beginning in a world where Sarah and John Connor truly believed they had won. Judgment Day had been stopped. Skynet was destroyed. Humanity had earned its future. This version of the story leaned heavily into consequence rather than repetition. The central question wasn't, can Judgment Day be stopped again? But what happens to people who have lived their entire lives preparing for a future that no longer exists? John Connor, in particular, was meant to be emotionally unmoored. A savior without a prophecy, a soldier without a war. The tension of the story came from uncertainty, not pursuit. Rather than opening with a new Terminator immediately hunting John, the narrative would slowly reveal that the future wasn't as secure as the Connors believed. The danger wasn't a single machine, it was the idea that the timeline itself resisted change. One of the biggest differences in the original storyline plans was how Skynet returned, if it returned at all. Early ideas avoided the concept of Skynet as a single centralized villain that could simply be rebuilt. Instead, the story leaned toward a more fragmented threat. Remnants of future technology, rogue military programs, and human ambition recreating pieces of Skynet without realizing it. In some versions of the storyline, Skynet didn't even exist yet. What existed instead was a slow, creeping inevitability. Humanity unknowingly rebuilding the conditions that would eventually give rise to it. This reframed Judgment Day not as a single date on a calendar, but as a process. This approach made the story more tragic and philosophical. There was no clear enemy to shoot, no final factory to destroy. The horror came from the realization that some futures don't arrive because they're sent back in time. They arrive because human nature leads directly to them. In the original story direction, John Connor was never meant to be the confident leader in waiting audiences expected. He was damaged, paranoid, and struggling with the psychological weight of a childhood spent running from machines that no longer existed. His arc wasn't about becoming a hero. It was about deciding whether the future was worth fighting for at all. Some early storyline outlines suggested that John might actively try to prevent himself from becoming the future leader, believing that his very existence was what triggered the war. This internal conflict would have driven much of the film's drama, turning Terminator 3 into a story about self-erasure versus responsibility. Rather than ending the film as a triumphant commander, this version of John Connor would have arrived at a quieter, more unsettling realization. The future doesn't need a chosen one, it needs someone willing to endure it. Perhaps the most striking difference in the original storyline plans was the intended ending. Instead of a large-scale action finale, early concepts pointed toward a grim, irreversible conclusion. Judgment Day was not something that could be postponed indefinitely. The story would end not with victory, but with acceptance. In some versions, the final act revealed that every attempt to change the future merely altered how Judgment Day happened, not if. The climax wasn't about stopping the apocalypse. It was about positioning humanity to survive it. This reframed the Connors' mission from prevention to preparation. The emotional punch came from inevitability. Humanity wasn't being punished by machines. It was facing the consequences of its own creations. The story would close with the sense that the war was only just beginning, but this time no one could pretend otherwise. When the final version of Terminator 3 arrived, much of this narrative ambition had been simplified. The philosophical weight gave way to familiar structures. A new Terminator, a clear villain, and a faster pace. While the released film retained the idea that Judgment Day couldn't be stopped, it delivered that message through spectacle rather than slow-burn dread. What was lost was a chance to complete the trilogy as a thematic arc. The Terminator was about fate. T2 was about choice. The original plans for T3 were about consequence. Instead of asking whether the future could be changed, the earliest storyline ideas asked something far more uncomfortable. What if saving the world doesn't save you? That question, heavy, unresolved, and deeply human, is the true ghost of the Terminator 3 that was never made.